Yeah, of course you're gonna have this accommodation because you are different, but that doesn't mean you can't do these things. It just means you have to do them differently. Hello, Tandem fandom. My name is Alexis, and welcome to the Tandem Collective, where you can find recommendations, tips, author interviews, and the latest book releases from Team Tandem. For today's 5 and 5, I'm going to give you 5 books in 5 minutes that have excellent chronic illness representation. As a person with chronic illness, I've been really encouraged with how much more representation we're starting to see across all genres, and these were some of my favorites. So the first book I'm going to mention is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and you've probably seen it blowing up over on Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube. For the purposes of this video, Violet Sorengale, who is the main character in this book, has a chronic illness. It's never named, but it is described, and the symptoms are described as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which author Rebecca Yarros also has. Basically, it means that your joints can become disconnected, I believe, very easily. It's a painful condition, and it can be physically limiting. But the reason I loved the representation of this illness in this book is that it doesn't prevent Violet from doing the things that she wants to do. She adapts and considers what she can do to minimize the effects of her illness and still do what everybody else is doing. I think it's really rare to find a fantasy book as well with somebody with a disability or chronic illness, because often the characters in fantasy worlds have to do things that are really physically demanding. So I loved how Rebecca Yarros didn't make Violet's condition a limitation. Later on in the book, other characters were making accommodations for her and being very compassionate and being like, yeah, of course you're gonna have this accommodation because you are different, but that doesn't mean you can't do these things. It just means you have to do them differently. Even if you're not a fantasy fan, if you're interested in chronic illness rep, then definitely give Fourth Wing a try. We're going to move on because we only have 5 minutes. So the second book with great chronic illness representation is Love Flushed by Evie Mitchell. It's the second book in her All Access series, and we actually did a Collective Voices read along over on our Instagram, and it included an Instagram live with our team member Ash J and the author Evie Mitchell, which was fantastic. I will link it in the description below. But Love Flushed follows Annie, who has Crohn's disease, which is a very painful GI condition, but she uses the struggles that she finds in her illness to actually help people by founding a company called Shit Happens, which is a toilet paper subscription service. It's brilliant, it is spicy, and as somebody with a GI condition, I've never read a book with a character that has a GI condition, and it meant a lot. The third book is also a romance in a series. It is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This character, Chloe, she has fibromyalgia, which is a really painful condition. It can make you very tired. This was actually one of the first books with this kind of chronic illness or disability rep that I read, and even though she and I don't share the same chronic illness, it was really meaningful. It's a romance, so her illness didn't prevent her from finding a partner. Not only that, a partner that was understanding of her condition and her needs. Camping scene is also fantastic. The spice is lovely, and I definitely recommend as well the other 2 books in the Brown Sisters series. The fourth book I'm going to recommend is The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. Oh my gosh, did I love this book. It can be hard to find books around the holidays that have to do with Hanukkah, but when I find them, I do really enjoy them. So in this book, the main character, Rachel, has myalgic encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome. This is a condition for most of the book that Rachel is trying to hide, and at the same time, she's also trying to hide that even though she is Jewish, she is a very successful Christmas romance author. So hiding these parts of who she is parallel each other. I really enjoyed the journey that Rachel goes on and that she takes the love interest on, because of course this is also a romance. And I actually learned a lot about chronic fatigue syndrome through reading this book. Like, I knew of it, but I didn't know that much about it. And the author, she also has CFS. So check out The Matzo Ball, especially when holiday season comes around. And the final book that I'm going to recommend today is called Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space by Amanda Leduc. I actually listened listened to this one on audio a couple of years ago, and it's a nonfiction book. She goes into tales like Beauty and the Beast and other folklore and explores how disability and chronic illness have been represented. One of the things she points out that really resonated with me is how in a lot of folklore and a lot of stories, disability or illness is depicted as needing to be overcome, or the prize at the end of a journey.
For who could ever learn to love a beast?
And she makes the point, which I agree with, that it's unfair and not very helpful for those living with chronic illnesses and disabilities, because oftentimes these chronic conditions are not something that there is a fix for. I found it really eye-opening, and like I can now watch films or read books where these elements are in there with a different perspective. I'm going to bookend it there for today, but please let us know in the comments if you've read any of these books or if you have any other favorite books with chronic illness representation. If you enjoyed this video or even found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more recommendations and insider bookish content from the Tandem Collective. In the description, you can also sign up for our newsletter and check out our Instagram and TikTok pages. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.